Yeah, this is Ross Payton with Role Playing Public Radio, and we're at episode 10.
Holy crap, did we get 10 of these things out?
Yep, this is filling in the flavor text, writing games for your home group. It's been 2 weeks since we've done our last episode, but we're back again. We also have a couple of things that are coming up pretty shortly. We're going to have a very special video that we'll actually be uploading sometime this month, and just recently I've done an interview with Sean Jaffe, one of the writers behind Blood Dim Tides. He also worked on the board game / action figure game ZG, if you remember that, where you bought little action figures with cards, and he's working on a couple other projects, so I talked to him. It'll be our first interview. I'll get that up sometime in the next week or so.
Man, we're growing up, man.
Yes, we are. We are certainly growing up.
We're almost out of adolescence.
Yep. We've all switched age category, as we would say.
There we go.
Yes. Because we're gaming nerds. Anyways, for this episode, we're going to be talking about game preparation, running, how you create games for your own home group, that sort of thing.
By that we mean more adventures, correct?
Yeah. Adventures, campaigns, scenarios, encounters, what have you. Whatever term you use. Of course, first, we have been getting a lot of feedback lately. We do appreciate the comments, all the emails, messages.
Because it's true, when we don't get feedback, we die a little inside.
Well, Tom does at least.
And Ross needs me.
Yes.
So you want to keep me around.
Yep. I don't want to be just talking to myself.
Though you
anymore, I already do.
Then you already do, yeah.
It's anyways, so for game design, this is obviously the backbone of any gaming group, is the poor GM who has to create some sort of adventure that the players will misinterpret, butcher,
or just flat out ignore.
Or ignore, yeah, and just, for mindless combat and hack and slash adventure. So,
or betraying each other,
yeah.
or sorting out real life problems in game.
Yeah. So you need to, but it has to be written. It has to be prepared. So what we're going to talk about is how some notes, some things to keep in mind when creating your own adventure. Obviously, the main advantage of creating your own material is that you can gear it specifically for your players, and every group has their own mix. There are the basic gamer types, the munchkin, the role player, the drama queen, all that stuff. But
Tommy Testosterone Tits.
Okay, I haven't heard that term, but we'll go with it.
It's a good term. I like it.
But each group is unique in terms of what their makeup is and how they interact. Every group dynamic is slightly different, and there are similarities, but only after you've run a game, only after you've figured out your own group, can you really make the perfect adventure for them. I think most players' favorite moments are the homebrewed scenarios or the pre-written material that's been sort of modified by the GM. That really unique touch, and only you, the GM, can really prepare it. So, first think of what your players want out of the game, and give it to them, basically, with the right challenges in a way that's entertaining to you.
And it's challenging, so you got some players that want a body count in the triple digits, then you have some that truly want to solve some puzzle, and balancing that kind of crap out can be difficult. It's difficult to balance violence-obsessed players with puzzle-obsessed players to role-playing obsessed players.
And the thing is, even with your own preparations, there are going to be times players have their own moods, and sometimes the combat munchkin wants to do a little investigation, or sometimes or
sometimes the puzzle player's girlfriend left him and he wants to kill as many people as he can.
There you go. So what does this mean? The main virtue, the highest virtue of any GM is great improv skills. If you can improvise very well, very quickly, think on your feet, you will be a great game master, failing everything else. I mean,
just pull shit. If you're able to pull shit out of your ass at a moment's notice,
right? Because unlike a video game, unlike anything else, there are no absolute boundaries in a role-playing game. I mean, you're all basically playing, Let's Imagine with dice and graph paper.
And a modicum of rules.
Yeah, but those rules can be ignored because we always love those, omnipresent house rules.
Ooh.
Yes. So
my hand's shaking a little bit when I think of that.
yeah, I mean, Palladium is written with house rules in mind because you can't run it as is. Yeah, that's right. I went there.
Wow, Ross, that was beautiful.
So what do we mean by improv? The obvious scenario, the obvious example is the players. You give them the old man in the tavern has a treasure map, and he's like, "Go to this dungeon
to get the magical amulet of Yendor," right?
Yes, or the gemstone of MacGuffin.
Ooh, very nice.
But the players say, "You know what? Screw that. We're going to go kill the Orcan bandits who are pissing off the villagers, or we're going to go march off." You see this part of the map where it says, "Here be monsters," and it says that's the edge of the world. I don't believe that. Let's go there.
Or if you're really unlucky, there's how about we buy this tavern and run it ourselves and start a business?
Yeah. And so all the notes you've prepared are basically useless. But this is where the improv skills. The first thing is obviously Schrodinger's principle, where basically whatever you prepare will be wherever the players go. There's no preset location for your notes. For example, in the same example, the players decide to buy the tavern. Well, guess what? It happens there's a dungeon underneath it. And it happens to be exactly identical to the dungeon that the treasure map was going to lead to, but now the dungeon is located underneath the tavern.
Or that horde of orc bandits that you were going to throw at them decide they want to drink and come to the tavern itself.
Yeah, they're going to throw a kegger at the tavern. So guess what? It doesn't matter where you go. Free will is an illusion. Now, you can pull that only so many times, and that's kind of a stopgap measure. The other thing is a little more subtle, where you take some elements of your notes and you remix them, you reuse them. For example, the orcs become burly villagers who are already there, and they decide they're going to revolt. Well, they are revolting, but they're going to rebel too.
Yeah.
And so that gives the tavern owning PC something to do.
Or you could make them into the union thugs because you have to be part of a union to own a tavern in this town.
Guild.
Guild, of course. Yes, my bad. Yeah. Anachronism, I'm sorry.
Yes. We don't have unions. We have guilds. Because the word guild just sounds cooler.
Rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
Yeah, Hollywood uses it. I mean, they don't have, the Screenwriters Union. It's the Guild, Writers Guild of America. I'm reaching, aren't I?
You are.
Okay.
So go back to what you know.
Anyways, so think of what you have in your notes and recast them, basically. And only use bits and pieces of it. Another measure is to strip mine ideas from other material. This is why, as a GM, I always buy lots of adventures, lots of books, especially if they're cheap, and just read through them and shamelessly steal whatever looks cool.
I watch a lot of movies.
Yeah, there we go.
Lots of TV, lots of movies.
Yeah. And
comic books.
Yeah, true. So basically, just think, okay, what works? What comes to mind? Okay, it's going to be like Cheers, but, George is an ogre. Go! Yeah. So,
yeah.
And Frasier, he's an illithid. He would. I think Frasier would make a good illithid.
Yeah. So would his brother. I'm slightly more gay, but
yeah. There you go. And Frasier's wife would be the hive mind.
Elder brain.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Can't believe you couldn't think of that.
I know. I'm just. I don't know. So shamelessly steal whatever you can from wherever you can, because you don't have to worry about copyright.
Well, shamelessly steal, but alter it so they don't obviously know you've shamelessly stolen it.
Final Fantasy video games have taught us a great hint. You can always reuse the same graphics by shifting the colors.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. First you have goblins, then you have chaos goblins, then you have rock goblins, you have fire goblins, you have water goblins, and they're all the same graphic, they're just colored differently.
And then, of course, giga goblins, terra goblins. And
yeah, right. So what you want to do is basically take... The way it works in gaming, in tabletop games, is a little different. What you do is you take the stats of something, because stat work, especially in D&D, it takes a while and it's annoying. and you just say it looks different. If it's the same,
it has a different name. It looks different. It speaks with a British accent.
Exactly. Instead of a troll, it's a reptilian shape-shifting alien or something like that. It just happens to fight exactly like a troll. Undead. It's a lot easier to the weird monstrous creatures. One freakish monster from beyond time and space looks pretty much the same as the other.
Yeah, and you can pretty much with them. You can just make up powers as you go along.
Yeah.
Really.
Now the thing is, there are some pitfalls of improving, and that's one of them. Is if you go too far and you forget what you've created, or you've become inconsistent. For example, if you establish the monster can teleport, and then the players trap it, and you forget that it can teleport, you're like, crap. What do I do? What do I do? Or if you, this is why improving a mystery in an investigation scenario is very hard to do, because you're like, okay, so what does this clue mean? And this is a red herring, and it's very easy to get tripped up, and your players will call you on it. They will be little bastards, and they'll be like, what?
Come on. Nothing makes a player happier besides massive success in a game than catching the GM doing something stupid or wrong.
All right, fair enough.
Trust me, playing with you as a player to your GM, the few times I've done that, I've gone home and just sat there and smiled to myself.
Thanks, Tom.
Anytime.
My failures make you happy. That's
exactly it.
So you need to
take notes, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. And don't go out too far on a limb, unless the scenario calls for it. If you're doing something really over the top, and inconsistency just, works for the genre. If you're doing, something screwball like Paranoia or Toon or something like that, then that would be fine. But cover your tracks and stay alert. I mean, especially with your improving. So those are some of the things you should keep in mind when you're doing this. Okay, so that's sort of the basic of improving a game, but then again, that sort of begs the question: what are the good elements of prepared adventure material? I mean, what should you have ready on hand, or should be able to come up with before the game actually starts?
Well, I think first and foremost, what you need is just memorable elements of the game.
Right.
I'm talking about locations, plots, NPCs. They need to be memorable. Players need to think about them after the game is over and that was weird. That guy was fucked up.
Right. And by elements we mean either NPCs, locations, challenges, events, or items. Something that happens And you don't need to don't make everything unique and memorable, because then nothing is unique or memorable. Emphasize a few key elements. For example, the villain and the place where the villain's hanging out, or make the villain generic and make for example, the battlefield. Make it over a burning building, fighting from two helicopters or something like that.
Or on a high steel girder platform with rain pouring down.
Right. So, just emphasize a couple of different things each scenario, something that will really stand out.
Vary it up with each session.
Yeah, mix it up. Don't
have two massive electrical typhoon storms.
Well, don't use the same formula, the same structure every time. If every time it's going to be a memorable villain at a memorable place, but everything else is generic, the PCs are going to expect that. One of the next things you should do is always spotlight each PC for each game. Now, each character will hopefully have some unique abilities or something like that.
You got one character that's a good hacker, then have one moment, have something in the game you need to break into a computer system or disable device, they can.
And again, by changing it up, we don't mean there should always be a computer to hack for the hacker. Hopefully, the hacker PC will have some other abilities. Lock picking or stealth or what engineering or something else like that,
and if
or
you have
basket weaving.
And if you have the character that's the massive powerhouse, throw out some giant thugs for him to take down.
Right, and add different complications to it each time. Maybe these thugs are being brainwashed, so the powerhouse has to use non-lethal damage, can't kill them or something like that. But try and give something for each PC. You'll know what each player will want in a game, so give them their own opportunities
and know their characters too.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to memorize their sheets, but generally get an idea of what each player, when they're developing a character, thinks of what they're going to want out of that.
Like it's like if you know who has a really high will save, and you're doing a scenario about mind control or something,
Right.
then you know they're probably going to be
the cult leader.
Yeah, they're going to be the only ones who are going to be able to act normally.
Right.
And if you have a situation going where their characters, are able to resist it but can't do anything else, then you're going to have to change something, obviously.
Right. That's a good point. The final thing is, don't set it in stone. Whatever material you have, be flexible with it and let the game flow, go where it will. You might assume that the PCs are going to do this, this, and this will be the outcome, but the PCs will go wildly off course, even if they're trying to follow you. They'll just come up with this weird logic that makes no sense to you whatsoever, but they just refuse to budge from it, and pretty soon they're all, disguising themselves as inflatable fish, to sneak into the fortress, and it makes sense to them.
Or one moment I had in a Mutants and Masterminds game was I had a robbery in a federal bank.
Yeah.
That I just planned that the mastermind was there. They were gonna take him out in the vault, but he got away and actually managed to hijack one of the police vehicles, which started a massive collateral damage, property damage laden car chase throughout the entire city, and they love that more than they did the bank.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you don't know. It's unexpected. It's authentic, and the players will really dig it. So those are the main things to keep in mind. Give each PC something to do. Memorable elements. Whether it's NPCs, items, locations, whatever.
Because as a player, nothing can piss off a player more than having to sit and wait for his turn to do something when there's nothing you can do at the moment. It'll piss him off.
Yeah, you definitely the thing that's killed my interest in a lot of games is the obligatory, okay, I have to do this one scene with this one PC for 3 hours. Ha 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 ha.
Oh, and advice to GMs:
don't do that.
Well, if you have a favorite NPC, don't make him do everything and steal their thunder.
There's a term for it, the Mary Sue, which comes from fan fiction. A little bit of history. One of the first fan fictions ever written was a Star Trek fan fiction where the female author wrote herself into the story, and her name was Mary Sue, and she was better at everything than anyone. She was smarter than Spock, better pilot, better captain than Kirk,
better pilot than Sulu.
Everybody thought she was just great, and she was the very first Mary Sue. And the more you know. So don't be that guy or girl.
That was beautiful.
Anyways, so just keep these 4 guidelines in mind whenever you're coming up with your own material. And again, if you have any questions or comments or suggestions on, or you need help creating your own materials, or you're running into your own problems, feel free to email us, contact us. We'd be glad to provide advice of dubious quality to you.
Because we are the finest advice people in games in the world.
Except for all those other people.
Well, yeah, them.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, we'll be back in a little bit with Tom and his letter.
Palladium have a long and loving history with me and the many gaming groups of my Crystal Pepsi drinking past. Some of the games I have played and or ran of Palladium have been pure joy, like the feeling I get when some right-wing nutjob gets caught fondling a teenage male prostitute in a men's room on national TV. Others have been so mind-numbingly bad that they cause me to vomit forth a sufficient quantity of bile that I could dissolve a good-sized truck. But I take all that in good stride because isn't that the undeniable truth of all gaming? Some games are great, some are shit, and the rest fall in between. Simple, straightforward, and pointless. However, the long cycle of love and hate I've had with Palladium has come full circle, and now it's time that we depart. I think it's worth noting that among all of the members of my old gaming groups, I am the one that stuck by Palladium the longest. In the beginning, with my first game of TMNT and Other Strangeness, not one of the 7-year-old Ritalin junkies in my first group thought badly of the system. Indeed, we barely understood any of it. But the sheer joy I had when my mutant alligator assassin Vigo held down the trigger of a 7.62mm minigun like he was pressing down on the gaping wound of his mother trying to staunch the bleeding would have outshone any problems in the system I might have noticed. All of the other Palladium games I played were equally fun as long as I ignored the system problems. Years of Heroes Unlimited, Rifts, Beyond the Supernatural, Nightbane, and even Splicers followed. As I grew older and understood the system more completely, that was when the first seeds of doubt began to grow. But as long as no one else in the group noticed, the games could go on. But I forgot that I wasn't the only pasty-faced gaming nerd in the group, and they read the rules too. Pretty soon they got the same doubts that I had, only their patience for bullshit was far less than mine. Suddenly I find myself facing cries of, "We want to try different systems," and "Palladium sucks," and "You're stupid and gay." You know, the usual. I resisted those cries for a long time. I was like an abused spouse who constantly keeps going back to the abuser. I made excuses for the system, things like, randomness makes things interesting. I would say that even after I rolled up a character with an IQ of 8, but who was also an MD. I would play a hardware weapons character in Heroes Unlimited who had to roll a 23 or lower on a percentile dice just to craft a simple armor-piercing bullet and say, "It makes the times when I succeed all the sweeter." I was hopelessly out of control. Finally, after Ross introduced me to my first game of D&D 3rd Edition, the cycle started to break. I realized that Palladium Fantasy RPG finally sucked, and I told it to go fuck itself. It was liberating, like finally telling your dad that he smelled like a shit-encrusted beer brewery. Soon, as I played other systems, I waved goodbye to many of the other Palladium games I had stuck with over the decades. The very last holdout was Heroes Unlimited. I love superhero games, and Heroes Unlimited was a good and loyal friend for a long time. And then came Mutants and Masterminds, and the last vestige of desire to continue with a Palladium system game disappeared faster than a pack of cigarettes at an AA meeting. It has taken me a long time for me to come to terms with the fact that Palladium hasn't changed much of anything in the system for years. It is an anachronism to me now, a memory that solely resides in my gaming past. I will hold on to the books as keepsakes to the days of yore, and I will occasionally crack one open and skip down memory lane with a song on my lips and a warm feeling in my heart. And owing to the more serious tone of this letter, I will end things with this. After beating everyone in the New York Philharmonic Orchestra Hall to death with a giant steel dildo wrapped in razor wire, Hello Kitty hired a lawyer with a shit-stained piece of toilet paper framed and hanging next to his law school diploma.
Ending for that rant there, Tom.
I felt it was a little more serious than my normal letter, so I figured I had to set the status quo back.
Had to punch it up, didn't you, Tom?
Well, it worked, didn't it?
Sure. We'll just go with that.
Hey, I'm not trying to please you. I'm trying to please everyone else out there.
Okay, well, let us know. See if that worked.
And I'm pretty sure at least someone on DeviantArt's going to do a picture of that sometime.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah, okay. All right. Fair enough. Next up, of course, we have our shout-outs, our things that we think that don't suck, and don't suck at all, or are actually good. Yeah.
The list is small, but they're out there.
Yeah,
there are things we like.
Oh, well, yeah. Anyways, first up is a webcomic that I enjoy, as I am wont to do with good webcomics. It's called Yet Another Fantasy Gamer Comic. It's a D&D based comic, but told from the perspective of the evil creatures for the most part. It's kind of soap opera-ish, but it's very humorous. The art's excellent. And it follows Bob the Beholder and his goblin girlfriend, Grin, and a bunch of other monsters. And it's a very long, convoluted plot, but it's entertaining. It's updates daily, and it's well worth reading.
Mazel tov, man.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good read. And it has an RSS feed, which some webcomics still don't have. And I'm looking at you, Dr. McNinja. You and your lack of an RSS feed. You don't even know what any of that I just said is, do you?
I'm just feeling the rage, man. I'm feeling the rage.
It doesn't have an RSS feed. How could you not have an RSS feed?
That fucking cocksucker.
You don't even read Dr. McNinja, do you?
No, Russ, I don't, but I feel that listening to you talk about it, I am getting the full experience through your emotions.
I see. Okay. Tom, you had one first.
Yeah, I got one for actually a board game.
Yeah.
It's Betrayal at House on the Hill.
Right.
It's kind of a tile-based haunted house game where you draw the rooms of this haunted house out of a pile, and there's I believe like 25 different scenarios that you could do and you never know which one you're going to get, but...
And I know what you're thinking. You're saying another tile-based haunted house board game? I mean, come on. There have been, so many. Like, how many movies has Hollywood done of dragons versus fighting helicopters? I know, too many, right?
Well, two that I can think of.
No, there have been... Tom, this is not the time.
I'm sorry. But no, actually, my friend David bought it, and last Friday we played 6 games of it, and each one was... We enjoyed the hell out of each one because each one was completely different.
Yeah, so it's a good board game. It's very fun. Next up, I have Rift Tracks. Rift Tracks.
Ooh, yeah.
Something I can't believe I haven't mentioned before now. It's a... If you know Mike Nelson, Mystery Science Theater 3000 head writer, also host, he's come up with this service where you pay for an MP3, and it's an audio commentary of a popular movie, such as recently they did The Matrix Reloaded. The all-time best is Roadhouse.
Oh, man.
And you sync it up to the movie, and they're making fun. Mike and usually his co-hosts like Kevin Murphy, Bill Corbett, sometimes others. They've had quite Weird Al.
Low Tax from
Something Awful.
Something Awful.
They will do a commentary about it, and it's like Mystery Science Theater, just riffing away on these movies, and it's hilarious. I really think Matrix Reloaded is one of the best ones they've ever done. I mean, they're just, it's like the first 2 minutes of Trinity, jumping out the window. It's like, more falling down than falling down. More shattered glass than shattered glass. And it's like, then the 100 Smith fight where Neo's fighting 100 Agent Smiths. It's like, God, these Mormon missionaries are just relentless. And they just go on and on for over 2 hours, and they really hate Daddy Day Camp for some reason. But anyway,
go figure that.
The MP3s themselves are like only a couple bucks each. There's a lot of really good ones.
I've heard several. They're worth it.
Yeah, not all of them are perfect. I would avoid like The Grudge. Sometimes they can't save a movie, but Roadhouse, The Wicker Man, Matrix Reloaded, obviously.
House on Haunted Hill.
House on Haunted Hill. Over the Top.
Over Top is a good one.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of really good ones. And just listen to them and enjoy. And so that's my second, shout out. So, Tom, you had one more?
Yes, I do. I have one to The Escapist.
All right.
Or Zero Punctuation, as he's known on the site.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that does video game reviews.
Right.
But they're some of the funniest and most clever game reviews I've ever seen. He does an audio recording that he does to small animations.
Right.
And every last one of the reviews are just as hilarious as hell. At the same time, also reviewing the game itself pretty well.
Yeah. He's a British guy living in Australia, and he talks very, very fast, and he likes to curse.
Not so fast that you can't understand him, though.
It's still very fast.
Yes.
Much faster than us slovenly Americans.
Oh, God, we suck. But, of course, the animations he does with each of his reviews are really great.
Yeah. Anyways, it's great stuff.
Especially the Guitar Hero 3 one. That's currently my favorite one.
Right. We'll put a link out, watch all of them. It's great. Yeah. They get about 1,000 times more traffic than our site, but that's okay.
Or I think we're hoping maybe we can steal some of their mojo if we mention them.
Yes, I'm sure he'll just put out a link to us because
he's awesome.
Because he really needs the vaunted RPPR bump.
Oh man, well, who doesn't?
Yeah. All right.
We should get the Republicans interested in us.
Yeah, exactly. We can. We're like the Colbert Report. We alone can determine the fate of the nation with our vaunted,
So fear our
prestige.
powers.
Yes. Anyways, next up we have our gaming anecdotes, which come from MySpace. A couple of readers have sent in their little messages.
And it's time for you to be famous.
All right, our first one is from Arthean, one of our MySpace fans. It begins. This is the story of what became known by the participants as the Chaos Campaign. Okay, first little backstory before the main event. It is a D&D 3.5 campaign. Starts in the Time of Troubles. I assume it's Forgotten Realms. So magic is running rampant and messing with all sorts of people. Party members are Psionicist, Anti-Paladin, Ranger, Wizard, Sorcerer, Rogue, and a Druid. Party alignment was generally chaotic neutral or lawful evil or some other form of evil. That's a warning sign right there.
Yeah.
That's you could just pretty much guarantee that something bad is going to happen with that. It all starts out with everyone in the party being randomly pulled from their various homes or locations by the wild magic being placed near a forest at a shabby inn. They proceeded to run into a gold dragon that tells them what happened. Not the most original, but it is just how I decided to do it at the time. And advises them against harming the nearby forest. They get information at the inn and proceed to the nearby town. Any of the encounters I threw at them on the way they handled with ease, blasting things with arrows or magic before it could get close. All right. Enter the town and the start of the fun for me. Around the town, there is a magical circle. Walking through this border around the town causes you to appear randomly in a building and undergo a temporary sex change. Temporary sex change. All right. I say temporary because it only lasts while you're in the town. So the fun comes in while they're trying to gather information. They are asking each other for info because they don't recognize each other. After many laughs and awkward situations, including the proverbial bad player trying to be a smartass and almost pissing himself in the game, they leave town, info in hand, and travel into the forest. They decide to take some of the wine from out of the town. It has the effect of multiplying everything potion-based, healing potions, poisons, antidotes, alchemist fire, etc., every hour. It starts out at, ×2 and works its all the way up to ×24 over the course of a few days. The ruins and tower they had to travel to was well supplied with ancient magical items and puzzles. A simple entrance to get into the ruins was a platform that traveled away from you as you walk toward it. The idea of warp magic meant that you had to walk backwards up to it for the platform to come to you and take you across the moat. During this time, I'd like to remind you that the potions are still multiplying. As they continue the dungeon crawl, they are leaving larger and larger piles of alchemist fires are laying around openly in the dungeon. The piles range in size from 120 to well over 400. Anti-paladin of the group manages to pray for favor and summons an air elemental, which they use as a whirlwind attack to attack a room full of orcs and goblins into mushy goo with blood running from the underside of the door. All the party members are ankle to knee deep in blood. Since we had a psionicist in the group, and we eventually came across a psionic monster, which gets its ass kicked until it unleashes a massive concussion ability. At this point, many massive piles of alchemist fire explode, causing serious damage to the area. Because they are in a reinforced vault of sorts, they managed to survive and only took minor injuries. Of course, they still have to go up to the tower, which is now very unstable. Fast forward a bit. They managed to escape the tower, item in hand, and managed to pick up a cursed deck of many things. It's not just a cursed deck of many things, or it's not just a deck, it's a cursed deck. That's, wow. The deck had a few
double duper.
Yeah, had a few warped abilities. First, the cards didn't disappear when used. They went back into the deck. Next, I added a few. Now, when I say a few, I used an entire tarot deck of cards and filled in the gaps. One thing a person ended up getting was you wake up surrounded by 100,000 copper pieces. Not overly helpful, and I'm sure the innkeep would be highly upset with the sheer weight which would destroy this part of his inn. Yeah, but compared to the other crap, that's not bad. Anyways, we picked up a warrior lost in the forest. At this point, the anti-paladin is high enough to get her mount, which she wanted a nightmare. I figured it was fitting, but I made her roll for it using the favor chart in the Book of Wild Darkness. She did extremely well, sacrificing the NPC druid in the process. Let's just say the NPC druid really failed his rolls and was abducted with ease. They finally escaped the forest, which I modeled somewhat after Fanghorn Forest from Lord of the Rings. Again, stealing stuff.
Take it, just take it.
Full of treants and such. They managed to escape, mainly because the forest ushered them out and managed to split the deck of many things. The rogue of the group decides to take the deck and play cards with it. That's a new one. I like that. Causing mayhem within the group, which we all loved immensely, and all sorts of messed up things happen. The warrior, thinking with his balls and not his brains, decides to destroy both of them by putting one on top of the other and smashing them with an axe. This resulting explosion hurls an explosive wall of energy out, fusing the deck back together but not destroying it. Okay, getting kind of Dragon Ball Z. The energy wave from the explosion sucks everyone into a void-like area, which was taking them to the Forgotten Realms. Okay, I guess they're just some other place with the Time of Troubles and Wild Magic. All right. So anyways, the Forgotten Realms. In the process of this, we have a new party member, the Arcane Archer. This is the reason why I always stress pay attention to party alignment. We had ended the game the week before with everyone just having entered the void. The Arcane Archer, not having paid attention to the party alignment, made a neutral good character. The Archer, seeing a nightmare, decides to draw a bow and an arrow on it. The anti-paladin, seeing its mount in danger, confronts and attacks the Arcane Archer. Now, the paladin gets initiative and uses the smite good on the archer. Archer now having a paladin in front of it. Let's go the arrow in response. The result is as follows. Archer takes over 40 damage. It's going to be bleeding profusely and fall unconscious. The archer manages to roll a 20, followed by 20, followed by a 19, resulting in a critical kill of the paladin. Within 5 minutes of the start of the game, we had 2 characters dead. At this point, we put the game on hold for a bit so they could make new characters, and the rest of us could recover from the shock of what happened. Wow. Just wow.
Yeah.
That honestly, that sounds like no pun intended, a nightmare of a game for many.
Yeah, that.
I don't want to be. Yeah, that I would have probably smacked you for some of those things, but.
Oh no! Come on! I prefer playing good characters. You know that.
Yeah, with your organ harvesting schemes and.
When there's alignment, that game there was no alignment.
So you're good when there's basically 2 teams and you want to play on team good, but when it's actually an issue of morality and nuance and doing the right thing without being getting benefits from it.
They were terrorists.
They're terrorists.
Terrorists.
All right. Entertaining story. It sounds like all the players were on the same page, though. So, I mean, if you want a screwball game like that, I mean,
well, look
honestly,
at
that could.
They're going to be talking about that game for a while.
Yeah. It's just. It's a minefield of problems. I mean, it's just if one of those players got pissed off or did the wrong thing, I mean, that campaign would literally explode. But
well, much like the Ruins did.
Yeah, or the Deck of Many Things. Yeah.
Hey, but you actually mentioned Dragon Ball Z, and neither one of us screamed the power level is over 9,000.
Well, you just brought it up. Thanks.
Well, I think that just shows how mature we have become over the years.
Oh, I get it.
Yes.
Anyways, we got one last one. This is from I can't read his full name. Dr. So-and-so. Dr. Scraps. And Dr. Scraps writes, The Rise and Fall of Cleat. In my group, I've run the Star Wars D20 game for a good while, having enjoyed a campaign that lasted a good year and a half. A sequel to said campaign that died after its 3rd month, and I am now enjoying finally being able to utilize the Saga Edition, imperfect as it is. This anecdote comes from somewhere in the halfway point of the first campaign, Twilight of the Old Republic, a title I still love to this day. It involves Oak. Okay. Zabrak Force Adept, the group affectionately referred to as the Horny One. What is a Zabrak? Do you know what those are?
Yeah, it's Darth Maul's race.
Oh, okay. Hence the Horny One. All right. Cleot had different motivations for his character than the rest of the group. While they were running around the galaxy trying to thwart the plans of a resurrected Sith Lord who was trying to kickstart an apocalyptic event that would see the galaxy turn into a Lovecraftian cosmic horror of itself, Cleot decided he wanted to be a big game hunter. You know what? This is, again, players want to just ignore your plot. They want to do their own thing. So Clea goes along with his girlfriend's character to Tatooine, where they decide to track a crate dragon. He was a level 5 Force Adept who did little more than use the Force to read people's minds and abuse the Farseeing ability, usually with failing results. And crate dragons, according to the game rules, easily ate PCs like him for breakfast. Okay. So the two ride their swoop bike into the dragon's lair, to which the crate dragon, of course, started chasing them in the other direction. While it's chasing them across the sands, it lets out a mighty roar, which is Cleat's cue to throw a backpack containing 5 thermal detonators, rolling a 20 on the throw, into the dragon's mouth. The resulting explosion saw the crate dragon's head explode, and Cleat became a very rich man selling the bones and carcass in Mos Espa. Although, if I was running that, I would say the thermal detonator would have ruined that.
Well, as I understand, the thermal detonator is a far more feared weapon than just a simple grenade.
Right.
I remember Return of the Jedi when the bounty hunter who was Leia threatens one. It's like suddenly it's like she's holding a mini tac nuke.
Yeah.
So I would have said, and if there were more than one, it vaporized the entire thing.
Right. That's what I would have done. Plus, whatever the shockwave would have destroyed their bike. But whatever. It goes on. What follows is a classic quote in our group, which never fails to bring a twitch to my eye. I have the teeth. Can I make a whip out of them? That was another quirk about the Cleat. He was always wanting to craft weaponry far outside the scale of anything that could be found in the books that the group possessed, leading to long arguments that gave me many a gray hair, be it a great dragon tooth whip or spiky body armor from said bones that could generate lightning. Oh, wow. In the sessions that would come to pass, Cleat would always find time to finding bigger and badder aliens to slay, usually with disastrous results. And even at one point being swallowed whole by a Kashyyyk shadow beast. I gladly obliged his death wish time and time again, hoping to subtly drop the hint that would take more than a bag of grenades and a cocky attitude to be a hunter. He always seemed to avoid death itself by a narrow margin. Cleat's downfall, however, turned out to be his greed. He had stolen a crystal from the cavernous caves of the Bahamut-esque dragon god of the dark side, and at the campaign's end was forced to serve the dragon god for eternity as its steward for his transgression. Alright. Good thing, I guess, about this little tale I've been ranting is that Cleat was always a good sport, especially when it came to me having to tell him no. When he got eaten, he merely groaned in frustration and worked his way out and laughed when he learned his ultimate fate of becoming the dark side dragon god's little bitch boy, and his antics never failed to lead to interesting moments of the monkeys at the table. Our gaming anecdotes for this episode, fairly entertaining.
Throwing in Bahamut, the dragon god, is a dark side god.
Yeah,
in Star Wars.
That's interesting. Well, he said Bahamut-esque, so technically...
Okay, well, Bahamut-esque.
Although Bahamut was a good dragon, is a good dragon.
The god of all good dragons.
Yeah, so I guess, maybe he was corrupted by the dark side, pulled the whole Darth
Bahamut.
Darth Vader kind of thing,
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
So he's got a bunch of, robot parts.
But, it sounds like the players were all mature enough to accept it in good fun. And, to be fair, Star Wars is just sort of ripe for that kind of misuse.
But, of course, then the whole point of gaming is to have fun, so if you had fun with it...
Yeah, exactly. There's no wrong way to have fun. Your type of fun is wrong. No.
Ooh, that's...
I remember the last time we played Star Wars, I was a Jedi who used my Force abilities to... give bad guys hallucinatory urinary tract infections.
And we plotted to build a starship built entirely out of blaster rifles.
Because those bad guys always have blaster rifles, so we could always...
And yes, I know we've mentioned this, but damn it, it's still funny.
Blaster rifles.
I think we said even today, we can just be sitting in silence and one of us can just say, blaster rifle.
All right, so that's been episode 10, filling in the flavor text. This is Ross Payton.
And I'm Tom Church.
And we'll see you next time.
Laters.